Dave Hester was the loudest man on Storage Wars until he called the whole show a lie. In 2012, he accused the network of planting treasures, leading to an instant firing and a legal war that cost him over $320,000. For years, fans believed he was blacklisted for exposing the truth, but the real reason he vanished wasn't a corporate conspiracy. It was a sudden, deadly medical crisis that nearly took his life before he could ever say "yoop" again. This is the dark truth behind the man the industry couldn't silence. Built from bargains and battle, Dave Hester was born on July 23, 1964, at Camp Pendleton Marine Corps Base near Oceanside, California, into a strict military environment shaped by a blended cultural home. His mother was Mexican, while his father carried German and Irish roots, placing Dave between different traditions from the very beginning. Life on the base was structured. Marines were everywhere. Uniforms, early mornings, and discipline defined each day. Strength and toughness were expected, not optional. While other kids grew up in quiet neighborhoods, Dave's early life was surrounded by drills, constant movement, and the idea that you had to stand your ground. That setting, combined with his mixed upbringing, slowly formed the blunt and confrontational personality people would later recognize on Storage Wars. Inside the house, the intensity continued in a different form. His father, a Marine, had an obsession with collecting model trains. Not a small collection, but thousands of pieces filling rooms with tracks, engines, and memorabilia. Dave would later describe his father as a hoarder, and it wasn't an exaggeration. That environment became his first lesson in value. His father took him to swap meets and auctions, where Dave observed how people negotiated, hesitated, and reacted when they believed they had found a deal. In 1969, at just 5 years old, he attended his first swap meet. Over the next 5 years, he helped sell the massive train collection piece by piece, generating tens of thousands of dollars. While his father loved collecting, Dave became drawn to flipping. He studied people, learning how small reactions could influence price. That contrast between holding and selling would shape his future. By his teenage years, Dave was not focused on school paths. He was focused on deals. By 14, in 1978, he had already started his own small operation. He sourced items from garage sales, swap meets, and even beaches, then resold them where demand was higher. He learned trends, pricing, and how value shifted across locations. At the same time, tension at home remained. Reports suggest he did not get along with at least one brother, hinting at early conflict that stayed with him. Growing up in that environment taught him independence. He learned not to rely on stability, but on himself. His work quickly expanded. At 14, he also began attending auctions in Southern California with a clearer strategy. He focused on tools and machinery, buying low, and reselling to businesses near the Marine base. This was not pocket money, it was a business. By the late 1970s, he was regularly attending auctions, often alongside his father, and had developed a strong sense of value. He could buy something for $50 and sell it for hundreds, or even thousands, when conditions aligned. While others his age focused on school life, Dave focused on margins, risk, and negotiation. That early exposure to discipline and pressure shaped his approach. At auctions, he carried the same intensity, using confidence and presence to influence others. His famous "yoop" became more than a catchphrase. It was a signal of control and intent. Years of reading people had trained him to spot hesitation, bluffing, or manipulation instantly. Step by step, he moved from buyer to central figure. By the early 1990s, he worked as a bid catcher, standing beside auctioneers and tracking bids. In 1992, he became a licensed auctioneer, gaining credibility and control. From there, he expanded into estate sales, liquidations, and larger auctions across Southern California, building the foundation for the reputation that would later bring him into the spotlight. Fame, fortune, and fallout. At the same time, Dave understood that television had handed him more than just storage units and payouts. It had given him something far bigger, a brand. That loud "yope" echoing across auction yards was no longer just a habit. It became a business tool. In 2011, he moved to trademark the phrase and began selling merchandise built around it. T-shirts, hats, bumper stickers, all tied to one word people instantly connected to him. That decision revealed the strategy behind his rough image. He wasn't just making noise, he was turning attention into income. The trademark even led to a legal clash with R&B artist Trey Songz, who claimed rights to the same phrase. That battle pushed Dave beyond auctions and into intellectual property disputes, showing how far his influence had stretched. A simple shout from a concrete lot had become something he could sell, protect, and fight over. When Storage Wars premiered on A&E in 2010, the concept was simple. Buyers had 5 minutes to inspect abandoned storage units, then bid and flip whatever they found. The format was easy, but the personalities drove the show. Among Daryl Sheets, Barry Weiss, Jared Schultz, and Brandy Passante, one figure stood out fast: Dave Hester. Off camera, he was already running auction and resale businesses, earning the nickname The Mogul. On camera, he amplified that identity. He bid aggressively, locked eyes with rivals, and dropped his signature "Yup" whenever he secured a unit. It became both his calling card and his weapon. Viewers quickly saw him as the show's villain. He argued, interrupted, and frequently clashed with Daryl and Brandon Sheets. The network leaned into it, using his confrontations in promotions and clips. Some viewers respected his sharp instincts and discipline. Others saw him as ruthless. Either way, he dominated attention. His reputation was backed by results. In one Season 2 episode, he bought a unit that looked ordinary, boxes and scrap metal, but inside were vintage vending machines, many still working. After appraisal, the haul was valued at around $27,000. Another moment came when he purchased a locker filled with newspapers. Most saw paper. Dave saw potential. Every issue dated back to August 16, 1977, the day Elvis Presley died. That collection later sold for about $90,000. These wins made him look unstoppable, someone who could spot gold where others saw junk. But those same victories raised questions. In 2012, Dave shifted from star to accuser. He filed a lawsuit against A&E and Original Productions, claiming Storage Wars was not as real as it appeared. According to him, producers salted units by placing valuable items inside before filming. He alleged that items like Elvis memorabilia and even a BMW Mini were planted to create dramatic reveals. He also claimed some cast members received financial support to keep bidding competitive on camera. Dave pointed directly to units that built his fame. He argued the Elvis newspaper locker was not luck, stating he paid around $750 for it, while its $90,000 valuation was part of a controlled setup. He claimed producers worked with storage owners and vendors to fill lockers strategically, ensuring big reactions. His accusations went further. He said appraisals and interviews were often pre-arranged. Scenes, he claimed, were filmed out of order to heighten drama. Some bidding moments, according to him, were recreated after the real auctions had already ended. Interviews were sometimes guided or scripted to fit storylines. Perhaps most damaging were his claims about money. Dave alleged that certain cast members were quietly funded to stay competitive, and that vendors were paid to supply planted items. He pointed to invoices, reimbursements, and internal records as proof. If true, it meant many of the show's biggest moments were not discoveries, but carefully constructed scenes designed to keep viewers hooked. The legal battleground. In December 2012, just as Season 3 reached its conclusion, Dave Hester transformed his long-standing grievances into a full-scale legal offensive. He didn't just complain, he formally accused A&E and Original Productions of staging locker contents, rigging the auction process, and betraying the trust of the viewing public. Hester argued that these actions weren't merely unethical, they were potentially criminal under the Communications Act of 1934. A federal law designed to prevent broadcasters from deceiving audiences through rigged contests. According to his version of events, whenever he voiced these concerns to the production team, he wasn't met with reform, but with retaliation. He claimed his refusal to participate in the charade led to his termination right before Season 4 began. His lawsuit pushed for damages in the high six figures, citing both wrongful termination and unfair business practices. Had these allegations been fully proven in court, the shockwaves could have dismantled the credibility of the entire auction reality genre. A&E was quick to fire back in the public eye. The network maintained a firm stance, insisting that Storage Wars never staged lockers and that every item seen on screen was part of the original haul left behind by delinquent tenants. Their legal defense centered heavily on the First Amendment, using it as a shield to argue that the show was a piece of entertainment, protected as creative expression. In the courtroom, their attorneys argued that the Communications Act didn't apply here because the show wasn't a traditional game show or contest, but rather a form of unscripted storytelling. They framed Hester's lawsuit as an aggressive attempt to interfere with their constitutional right to craft narratives from real-world events. In March 2013, Judge Michael Johnson delivered a ruling that fundamentally altered the trajectory of the fight. He threw out Hester's claim regarding unfair business practices, ruling that the way Cindy Storage Wars presented its content fell under the protection of the First Amendment. From the judge's perspective, the producer's choices, even if they involved salting lockers or manipulating storylines, were creative liberties. This was a massive blow for Hester, as it meant he couldn't use business laws to challenge the show's authenticity. The court essentially validated the idea that reality television can blur the line between truth and performance, while remaining legally shielded as entertainment. The financial hits kept coming for the reality star. In July 2013, after the court dismissed Hester's anti-SLAPP motion, he was ordered to cover the legal costs incurred by A&E and Original Productions. The bill was steep. He was directed to pay approximately $96,735 to A&E and $25,957 to the production house, totaling over $122,000. This moment made Hester appear not only legally defeated, but also financially vulnerable. Trade publications and entertainment news outlets dissected these numbers, leading many to believe he had tragically miscalculated his legal strategy. However, the tide shifted slightly later that year. In a nuanced move, the judge drew a boundary between creative expression and a person's rights as an employee. While the claims of rigging and unfair practices remained blocked, the court allowed Hester's wrongful termination claim to proceed. The judge clarified that employment disputes aren't automatically granted immunity by the First Amendment, even if they occur within a media production. Hester's claim that he was fired specifically for whistleblowing about rigged practices was viewed by the court as a labor issue rather than a free speech issue. This gave him a vital, albeit narrow, path forward, meaning a jury would eventually have the power to decide if A&E had pushed him out unfairly. By the middle of 2014, the high-stakes drama ended not with a jury's verdict, but with a quiet, out-of-court settlement. Both parties agreed to bury the hatchet, though the specific terms were locked away behind strict confidentiality agreements. No one ever officially disclosed how much money was paid, if any, or what compromises were reached behind those closed doors. Neither Hester nor the network issued a detailed final statement. The public only knew that the case was settled and the file was closed. This silence sparked endless theories among the fan base, with some imagining a massive payout and others suspecting he walked away with very little. One thing was certain: the legal war was finally over. The aftermath of the battle left Hester in a complicated position. On paper, A&E walked away with significant legal victories, including the dismissal of the fraud-based claims and the initial order for Hester to pay their fees. Yet, Hester had managed to walk away with a settlement and had forced a major network to publicly justify its production methods. Reports later hinted that the cumulative toll of legal fees, medical expenses, and the strain on his personal ventures had cost him upwards of $320,000. Some of his businesses, such as the Newport Consignment Gallery, eventually shut their doors. Regardless of the personal cost, his defiance left a permanent mark on the industry, exposing the paper-thin divide between reality and fiction in unscripted television. The return and the resilience. After the legal dust finally settled, the narrative took a turn that caught the world off guard. Dave Hester did something that almost nobody in the industry saw coming. In August 2014, he made a stunning return to Storage Wars for its 5th season. This comeback sent shockwaves through both the audience and the cast members. As most people had assumed, the bridge between Hester and the network had been burned beyond repair. Instead of a permanent exit, he walked back onto the storage lot, let out his signature "You" catchphrase, and jumped straight back into the high-stakes bidding wars. While the specific details of his contract remained behind closed doors, reports strongly suggested that his reappearance was a direct byproduct of the confidential settlement. For the producers, it was a masterstroke of strategy. The very man who had publicly labeled the show a fraud was now the primary engine for new ratings. Viewers were glued to their screens, eager to see if he would ignite fresh chaos or simply fall back into his established role. His presence on the set immediately reignited old fires. Daryl Sheets, Brandon Sheets and the other regulars weren't just putting on an act when they appeared visibly uneasy around him. They carried the memory of the lawsuit, the accusations of rigged lockers, and the claims that their professional world was nothing more than a staged performance. Some cast members were vocal in their criticism, condemning him for dragging the show into a courtroom. Conversely, others held a private respect for his willingness to stand up against what he perceived as dishonesty. Every auction became far more than a quest for a profitable unit. It transformed into a collision of massive egos and unresolved history. His "you-up" now carried the heavy resonance of his past legal battles and the choices he had made. During this second chapter of his television career, spanning from roughly season 5 through season 12, Hester attempted to bridge the gap between his small-screen fame and his actual business interests. He operated Dave Hester auctions, utilizing his notoriety to pull in a steady stream of clients. The constant exposure from Storage Wars ensured that his name remained prominent for both casual viewers and serious industry buyers. Even when his Newport consignment gallery was forced to close its doors in 2019, he remained a fixture in the professional world as an auctioneer and appraiser, securing various contracts and consulting roles. In a sense, he masterfully converted his polarizing television persona into a powerful marketing asset. The very drama that made him a lightning rod for criticism on screen served as a catalyst for his success in the tangible auction industry. Public perception of Hester remained deeply fractured. To a segment of the fan base, he was a courageous whistleblower who had exposed the inner workings of reality television only to return to the job once the dust cleared. To others, he was a calculated villain who had sued the very platform that granted him fame, only to cash in again when the opportunity arose. The producers, well aware of this divide, leaned into his complicated reputation to drive online engagement and fuel the show's storylines. Hester's trajectory became a fascinating case study in the power of reality TV to mold an individual into both a hero and a villain simultaneously, depending entirely on the perspective of the observer. Then, in late 2018, the trajectory of his life shifted violently, and this time the cause had nothing to do with legal filings or television ratings. One night, Hester woke up in a desperate struggle for air. He was rushed to the emergency room, where medical professionals discovered he had suffered a massive hemorrhagic stroke. This life-threatening event was the result of high blood pressure and untreated sleep apnea. Medical tests revealed a terrifying reality. His breathing had been stopping more than 100 times every hour while he slept, a condition that had been starving his brain of vital oxygen until a blood vessel finally gave way. He spent several grueling days in the intensive care unit, followed by a full month in a specialized rehabilitation center. There, he was forced to relearn the most fundamental human tasks, from walking and showering to managing a daily routine. By September 2019, he was still on the long, difficult road to recovery. The stroke effectively sidelined him, pulling him away from both the auction circuit and the cameras. His noticeable absence from Storage Wars during the early 2020s was not a tactical hiatus or a secret dispute with the network. It was a profound medical crisis. While fans on the internet traded wild theories about secret bans and behind-the-scenes blood feuds, Hester was quietly fighting to piece his life back together. He concentrated on managing portions of his auction business from the confines of his home, finally taking his doctor's advice seriously and attempting to mend the physical damage caused by years of neglecting his health. The stroke left him with lingering nervous system issues, though he managed to avoid major motor disabilities. He eventually spoke openly about how stress, relentless working hours, and his own stubborn nature had led him to ignore medical warnings until it was almost too late. Even as he worked toward health, online narratives continued to distort the truth of his absence. Clickbait headlines frequently claimed he had been permanently exiled for exposing the truth about the production of Storage Wars. Countless videos and articles recycled the myth that he was being punished for his prior lawsuit and would never be permitted to return to the airwaves. These stories ignored the simpler, more human reality. While it was true he had been fired in 2012 for questioning the show's integrity, and true that he had spent years in a legal war with A&E, the reason for his disappearance in the 2020s was purely health-related. He was a man recovering from a stroke. The legend of a lifetime ban was simply a louder and more profitable story to tell than the quiet, difficult truth of rehabilitation and physical struggle. All of these factors combined to make his eventual return even more spectacular. On June 26, 2025, at the age of 61, Dave Hester stepped back into the spotlight for Season 16 of Storage Wars. TMZ and various other media outlets broke the news of his reappearance, making it a national headline before a single episode had even hit the air. Viewers who believed they had heard the final "yoop" were suddenly watching him walk back onto the auction lot. He appeared older and noticeably more introspective, carrying the visible weight of both his legal scars and his near-death health experience. Yet, when the bidding started, it was clear that his fierce competitive spirit remained entirely intact. The reaction from the remaining cast was a complex blend of disbelief and extreme caution. Renee Njoda, Ivy Calvin, Brandy Passante, and the others had established a new dynamic and rhythm during his long time away. Now, they were forced to recalibrate for the return of a man who had not only sued the production and accused them of participating in fraud, but had also survived a major medical catastrophe. The old animosities did not just vanish. The years of the lawsuit had left deep scars, and the ghosts of the earlier legal battle over salted lockers and rigged auctions still haunted the set. As Season 16 progressed, the tension was palpable for the audience. Every bidding war represented more than just a financial transaction. It carried the entire history of what these individuals had endured together and against one another. Beneath the surface-level drama, Hester's 2025 comeback offered a broader perspective on his life's work. He had begun his journey as the abrasive villain with the Midas touch. He then transformed into the whistleblower who attempted to pull back the curtain on the illusions of reality television. He had paid a heavy price, in the courtroom, in his personal finances, and in his physical well-being. However, by fighting his way back onto the screen once again, he effectively turned his own survival and persistence into a brand new kind of narrative. Hester proved that in the world of unscripted TV, the most compelling story isn't just about what is found inside a locker, but the resilience of the person standing outside of it. Dave Hester's journey remains one of the most controversial chapters in reality TV history. From a legal whistleblower to a stroke survivor, he has proven that no matter the cost, he is a man who refuses to stay down. But what do you think? Was he a hero for speaking the truth, or a villain for playing the game? Let us know in the comments below.